Hi, I'm Kyle.
I'm Josh.
This is Two Guys, One Car.
Welcome to our car.
Dude, it starts with Two Guys, One Car. That's the name. It should start
It's
with
welcome
the
to our car.
name. No, but it has to start with Two Guys, One Car because that's the name of the thing.
Just get in the back seat.
Right along with us.
Yeah, but I think maybe the best way to start off is probably like we could give context to our relationship, like all three of us. Yeah. So I met you pretty much through Josh, and basically we've had just an amazing experience with the drive, and like we had some time after that as well, which we spent together, like us three, I guess, and we have like a really good connection now. But initially, it's like you guys obviously met through Byron.
Yeah. We met through Luke actually. I met you at Luke's party, that dinner thing in some bar at the city. And then I remember Luke telling me before I met you, he's like, dude, Andrew, like you'll love him. He's just such a vibe. And we met and instantly you're a hugger. And I'm like, I love this guy. Yeah. And just such a positive energy about you. And then we properly met like a year or so later.
At that house party.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting at that house party because I was very much still in my like just some of the darkness after the pop-up party stuff and like rediscovering who I was again. And so when you came up to me then, I don't even know if I remembered that I met you at Luke's. And I just remember you being like, oh yeah, you have a pod, like you work. Yes, I thought you were like just like a random fan of mine from Instagram. That was like the first 5 minutes. I was like, who is this guy? Like, oh, he likes the stuff I've done. That's kind of cool. But then it started to click, and I was like, fuck, this is dope. And then was Will there as well?
Will was there.
Yeah, because Will and I just vibed with a lot of the First Nation stuff, and then just really ended up clicking with both of you guys.
And that was the night that I pitched the drive to you.
Yeah.
Loosely.
And
then from there it just followed up, and then you were in, and
you were like, hey, do you want to like get a cheap old car and like drive to the outback with us, basically? Yeah. And I had like a gut sense of like, yeah, let's do it. Because generally my gut's like pretty on point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do talk about that a lot. So the initial reaction to that was just like, I want to do this?
The initial reaction to that was less of like a specific, I want to do this, and more just this innate curiosity. I thought, ooh, okay.
And it's also like you've met this guy once, forgotten about that. So now it's pretty much you basically...
Well, I don't think I forgot that I met him, but I forgot that it was the same...
Yeah, same guy.
Make the link.
And it was more like this, and this guy's just sprung this opportunity on me. So it probably innate just curiosity.
I thought like at the house party, I thought Josh was a fanboy of mine, and Will was like really, really cool. So
you're like the loser guy.
No, I'm exaggerating a bit. But and then started talking to Josh more. Yeah. And then because we caught up, you came to my place. Yeah. And we just went for a walk, and I didn't realize just how much we had in common. And we had a beautiful chat. And I was like, oh, this is like really special. Like I see a lot of possibility for a great friendship here. And that's when it was like, okay. And my gut sense was like, let's do it. But it was full on, like deciding to come on the drive, getting a car, the cost, like the money that I spent so far, and like, hopefully we'll get some of it back, but the money I spent to come on the drive was like money that was going to be used to pay down my credit card debt from 2021 when I tried to launch my business. And so it was like a bit of a like, fuck, like this is a big like commitment for me. But then also I look back on last year and I feel like that really ignited like my spirit and my soul and my desire for adventure in a way where some new doors have opened, and like it really just unlocked a lot of stuff for me. And so I definitely back my intuition there. And it was also just like, it's a fun air.
Yeah, because you were initially meant to do an East Coast trip in your van to recreate your trip. Do you want to dive into what that first trip was, the East Coast trip you did in your van?
The East Coast trip in my van was a hectic time where I just launched my podcast around connecting with strangers, and just this idea that like there's depth and beauty and inspiration inside every human being when we take the time to listen and connect. And I got a bit of traction on that, and then just shit hit the fan in my life. Ended up in a bit of a abusive family situation, still having visa issues, had income limitations, and the only option was to live in a vehicle. And so I came across this van, and there's a full story around like the van, which we can go into if you want, but at a high level, like it just kind of magically and serendipitously came about that there's this van with a like I literally had a rooftop deck on the top that came together, and the mechanic ended up like mechanics. Serendipitously, I was just chilling, and like only one of the 4 cylinders of the engine was firing when I bought this van. So it was like you driving, the whole thing shaking. Yeah. And I was like, all right, I'm probably just gonna have to live in this van on the side of the road. And like, all right, that's just like what I need to do in this phase of my life. And no kidding, I'm pull up in this park. It was in Marrickville, and I start chatting to some girl that also has a van, and she's like, hey, I feel like I really need to tell you, if you're looking for a mechanic, check out this guy. He'll like sort you out. And I was like, oh. And I've been to a couple of mechanics, and they were all like this van's so shit. Like nobody would even give me a pink slip, so I just drove it out west for an hour, and then they gave it to me in like 30 seconds. And so yeah, this guy like hooked me up. Like he found out about the family situation, and he like taught me some bits about the car, and then it was running super well. And so I raced up to Queensland basically before the border shut for like the second or third time, and just ended up having like the craziest adventure in Queensland for a couple of months. And there was a bit in there where like day 3 or 4 of living in the van, I got a call from my doctor, and I'd had some like random scans and stuff done telling me I had cancer. And so I just...
Where are you on day 3 or 4?
I've spent time out west to get the pink slip. I've been living around the city, and then I've come back to Northern Beaches to say bye to my family before I decide to head up to Queensland. And even in this van, it's like when I got the van and the doors started opening, because it all just flowed. And I feel like it's like a kind of cool metaphor for some of the stuff in my life, where the day I left home, my mom sent me this quote. It was a Dr. Seuss quote. It's like, today's your day, you're off on your way, and really about adventures. And then, like, I just didn't even know if I'd be able to, like, get a van I had, like, $3,000 left in my bank account. And then when I got the van, I was like, okay, cool, well, it's like a safe place to sleep on the side of the road. And then there was the possibility of, I was able to get pink slip, and then, like, rego and get it fixed.
Started to unfold. The possibilities started to open up.
Yeah, and then like I just drove to Parramatta Beach, and I was just kind of crying and reflecting. It's like, oh my goodness, like I have like a running van now, and sure, kind of it hasn't been ideal because I just launched my podcast. I had so much momentum in my life. Yeah. The last thing I wanted was all these unnecessary logistics. And I met this couple, and they're like, oh, like that's cool, you have a van. Like, where are you traveling to? And I hadn't really even thought about it. Yeah. And they're like, oh, did you hear that like Queensland's like reopened their border again? I was like, oh my goodness, like I could go up to Queensland. And I went to a family friend's place that I stayed at for a couple of days, just to kind of sort out my van, sort out the interior a bit, and they just kind of supported me because it was a really rough time in my life. And when I got there, I was just looking at their bookshelf, and the same Dr. Seuss book that the quote was from was in the middle of the bookshelf. And I was like, okay, sweet, like just gonna take this as a sign, and I'm gonna leave it behind my entire life in Sydney and just travel to Cairns in my van. And then it was the day later when I went to the doctor that the doctor told me I had cancer, and I still have it. Like I recorded like a video just on my old phone, just me like bawling my eyes out and being like I've literally just launched the most meaningful project in my life and have so much momentum with it. And now I had no choice but to leave home because of the family situation. I'm having like visa issues, and now I've got cancer. And it was just so rough. And then I remember in that moment being like, well, if I had 3 months left to live, what would I do? And I was like, well, I'd just do the van trip. Like I've fallen in love with people and connection, and I believe that there's depth and beauty in everyone. And I'll just like travel in my van, learn ukulele on the top of the wooden deck, and just see what people I meet and what adventures I have along the way. And so I was like, all right, sweet. And so like I was really prepared to die, like either in the van, because it was, by the time I got up to Cairns, I had to hold the steering wheel like that to go straight, or whatever it was. And like I found out when I got back to Sydney, maybe 6 months later, that I never actually had cancer in the first place. And it was like a fake diagnosis. The doctor like really messed up. It was like pre cancer or something. And so it was like not even an issue.
So you were living for 6 months thinking you had cancer?
yeah, thinking that like there was like something going on and I needed to like have a colonoscopy and get it checked out, and I was just like, oh, like that's just not too important to me right now. Like it's just time to go on this adventure, and yeah, like I was just like really willing to die, whatever that looked like. And
wow, like you were comfortable with death.
yeah, 100%. And that's been like a journey for me the last few years, is like giving up my attachment to life. And like I feel like it's been like I've just experienced so much. I'm 24 now, about to be 25. So much. And it's just this thing where like I used to have this piece of paper I printed out. It's like from Tim Urban, the Wait But Why blog, where I think it's a 90-year human life in weeks. And each week I would go and like tick off a week to remind myself that I was going to die and to like maximize my life. And then when I had key milestones in my life, collaborating with Yes Theory, comedy in India with the Nobel Peace, like whatever it was, first of all, like whatever it may be, I'd write them all on there. And then it just got to this point where I realized I was like so attached to being alive. And it was time to let go of that. And so I walked down to the beach, I like grabbed a lighter and I just like burned that piece of paper.
Wow.
And yeah, it's yeah, like I'm just no longer attached to being alive, which is so trippy.
Yeah.
To be able to say that at 24 and not from a place of I don't want to live.
No.
It's way more complex than
But
that.
I feel like I just feel really at peace with my life and what I've been able to experience. So yeah, that was like the van. I mean, that's just like the meta conversation around the van.
And so in hindsight, do you think living those 6 months thinking that you had cancer, was it almost good for you because you spent those 6 months doing what you wanted to do?
I mean, I think that the cancer stuff just became irrelevant. I feel like I would have lived, like I didn't really think about it much at all. I was just doing what I wanted to do. I feel like if I didn't get falsely told I had cancer, I would have probably still done exactly the same thing.
Wow. And that
because
really...
I just had conviction.
That's a real metric to show you that you were doing what you actually wanted to do. Something as heavy and as uncontrollable as cancer was in your face, and you didn't even care.
It's cool. Yeah, it's cool that you didn't change your course. I think a lot of people would get that news and then quit their job and go on this drastic experience. But for you,
I was already like,
you were doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's almost just a great indicator of you know, you're doing what you already do.
Yeah.
And like, as for the doctor, like what happened there? Like, were there any repercussions? Are there any repercussions
like,
from that?
Mum wanted there to be like repercussions for the doctor and all that, but I was just like, this guy's just like a really funny guy. He's like, I don't really see him anymore when I go to the doctor. But yeah, his.
How'd they break that to you? How'd they break it to you that it was false?
Oh well, Mum just read the I think it's called the histology report or something, and she's like a psychiatrist, and she's like, oh no, like she's like this is like not cancer at all, hey, like he's totally like misinterpreted the scan results.
Wow.
So it just took your mum to just read it, and then it was
that's wild.
But I was chilling, like I was, you know, I remember just like making it to the Gold Coast and. It's like, okay, well, I've made it here, and what I didn't realize was in Queensland, the default is sleeping in your vehicle is illegal. And the first night, I was just like, oh my goodness, I made it to Queensland, parked up by the beach, and it's just so sad because I was going through so much stuff with my family, and I wanted to be there for my mom as well. And I got woken up in the middle of the night by like cops banging on the window saying like, you can't sleep here, and that was my welcome to Queensland. And then I learned the art of like stealth camping.
Yeah.
Would just play my ukulele on the beach and see where I'm at. And like I ended up going like paragliding.
Damn.
This guy took me up. He had like a bet with his mate on if he could get me to like pass out by doing this like hectic aerobatic stuff. It was hectic.
Did you pass out?
No. But I came so close. But then all the way through to just like smiles. And some days, like I would wear my Hello Stranger shirt all the time. And some days people would say hi to me, and I'd just be, because I was just like going through a lot internally, and I'd be like, what the fuck? Why are these people saying hi to me? I was like, oh, I've got a shirt. I got a shirt on that says Hello Stranger. And so it was the little moments as well. But I really like found a lot of peace in like where I was at with my life, and and like I still kind of do.
Yeah.
To this day.
So at the point of like you'd done that trip, and why did you come home?
Well, when I got up to Cairns, it started to get really hot.
Yeah.
And so literally I would like go to the gym first thing in the morning when I woke up, to have a cold shower to stop myself from sweating, and try to go to the gym right before bed to cool my body temperature enough to be able to fall asleep. And it had just been like, I'd been through a really intense 3 months of creativity with my podcast, and my life like starting to really take off in all the ways I'd always dreamed of. And then going through the family stuff and going through everything else I went through, like it was just, my body just also needed like rest and some time to heal. And so sleeping in a van, especially the van, like it was a cheap van, like I had to kind of curl up at night. It wasn't like a luxurious Sprinter, you know. And so it just got to a point where my body was like, man, I just need to like chill out and just like sleep for a month. Because I'd just been through a lot. And so that was kind of the decision to turn around. Also, I got an opportunity to work with a billionaire and learn like entrepreneurship a bit. So that was like, okay, like let's turn back to Sydney, have some rest, and then like hang out with this guy basically and see what I can learn from him.
And so with the podcast, what was kind of the reception from the guests? Because the concept was you meet a stranger and get them on the podcast, right? Like it's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's like seeing, because I used to be really obsessed with this idea that we're all like alike, like we are more alike than we are unalike. And there's all these like quotes about that. And so it was originally all about finding similarity and common ground. But then I reflected and I remembered something my anthropology teacher told me at university, which is that it's similarity and difference coming together that makes a piece of music beautiful. It's like, it's the same with humanity. It's similarity and difference coming together that makes humanity beautiful. And so that changed the idea. The idea was to find similarity where I'd normally see difference, and find difference where I'd normally see similarity. So in that sense, it wasn't always strangers. Sometimes it was old friends where I'd let go of everything I thought I knew about them and just try to find the subtleties and nuances and differences. And yeah, like for the guests, it was a really impactful experience. And for the listeners as well, I think I had about 200 people listen to 2 full podcast episodes before I released it and give me feedback. And probably about 2/3 of them said it was the most impactful podcast they've ever listened to. Wow. But it was a journey. Like it wasn't fast-paced, dopamine, attention-grabbing entertainment. It was like I would say to people that didn't get heaps out of it, it probably says more about you than it says about the podcast, because you're not comfortable slowing down enough to go on the journey of that conversation. And yeah, like it was really special. This idea that we don't always need these like gurus and special figures that have all the answers, but that like just that there's wisdom all around us. I feel is really refreshing and needed in the world we live in today.
Yeah, we're always trying to find that one answer. Where it's like there's multiple answers. It's like not everyone has the same answer as well. There isn't one divine.
It's just this like obsession with looking outside of ourselves for the truth. Like I used to be there as well, and now I don't do that anymore. And it's cool because I used to have these people I looked up to, like successful entrepreneurs, and part of me was like always wanting to be like them and have the money and the success, and part of me was always like, okay, cool, like I'm at peace, like I'm chill with death, like I'm doing all these crazy fun things, but man, if only I could be like them, or I'd rather like have their life than mine. And now I'm like, no. Like I look at a lot of people. First of all, so many successful people are just fueled by self-hatred, and I look at their achievements and I laugh and I'm like, bro, you just like hate yourself. Like chill out. And just the conviction to be, it's like, yeah, cool. Like I still want to live in the world and like have money and create things and all that, but just the conviction. Must have been around 2021 where I was just going for a walk and I was like, you know what, Andrew? There's no one I'd rather be in the world than myself. And that was a big moment for me.
It's huge. If you can get to that point in life, it's a very special moment.
Few people like do, and that's why I just like really trust myself. And like I've been on a journey the last few years with learning what unconditionality means in that trust, especially when I've just trusted myself. And like, I've done crazy stuff, like rented a helicopter and brought my Uber driver along, and just like the stuff I've done, like what the heck?
It's bizarre.
It's so out there. And some of the time, like it's been hard when I've been through stuff like the whole pop-up party thing, that was the hardest time period of my entire life. And it's like few people will, like we can go into it if you want, but it's like few people will ever understand the depths of that journey.
Yeah,
I think, like, oh, you got like $1,000 fine.
No, it's the element of like, I think it's an culmination of the rise that you were on, and like we've obviously talked about it pretty extensively, but yeah, sort of the rise that you were, the heights you were reaching at that point, and then to just be almost, for lack of a better term, like unfairly, almost just given these circumstances, it's just like, wow, some things are just out of your control. Yeah, it is a punch in the face.
Well, I'd been building stuff for years. I'd come back from my van trip, had some time to chill out, spent some time with this entrepreneur, learned a little bit, but then realized that I probably trust myself more than I trust him.
Do you think it took for you to have that self-acceptance and for you to say to yourself, I wouldn't want to be anyone else in the world other than myself? Did it almost take being around the heroes and those successful people to realize that for you, to realize it's not as good as it might have seemed?
Maybe. I think some of them can be great. I have some great mates that are really successful. But I think it was more the inner journey of learning to love the different parts of myself. And I've always had, like, I used to really have this part of me that was like, oh, like, come on, man, you got to do more with your life. Like, you're wasting time, and building a relationship that way. It's like, dude, come on, like, I'm 24, like, I've done all this stuff. And also, even if I hadn't done any of it, like, it's still like I've just had like a really beautiful experience in life so far. And being more gentle and peaceful with myself, that's been the main part of that journey.
And how is it for you to pull yourself out of that? Because a lot of the successful people are in that sort of rat race, and it's sort of the, you know, like, grind, keep going, keep going, keep growing. And to have your approach is a very different kind of outlook. So how do you find you balanced that, being around that environment?
Well, I just feel like I came up with this analogy a couple of years ago, like 3 levels of life. First level is just being in the rat race, blindly doing whatever anyone else does. Second level is you start to trust yourself a little bit, but only when you have models you can replicate. So I don't know, like Elon Musk did this, or I don't know, like Andrew Huberman did this. You find these different people and you're like, okay, or maybe it's like your mentors, you hang out with them. Here's a model for success. How about I go and replicate it? And you trust yourself more, but there's still this bit of you're only trusting yourself because someone else has walked that path before. And then I found that beneath all of that was this kind of like third level of life where I was going places where I didn't have like examples or evidence, or previous people hadn't walked that path. And I just had to be in this state of endless free fall. And for me, like, I really discovered that when I backed myself and flew over to LA to work with the YouTube channel Yes Theory for a while, where I booked a flight without like having any contact with them. And it was only really like the day before that I actually worked out a way in and how to work with them. And like there was some of my last money in my account because I was still income limited with my visa. And I just had a strong gut sense that it was all going to work out. And so I just backed myself. And like it was after that trip that I really had that analogy of, okay, like what does it mean to trust myself when I don't have any evidence or there's no models I can follow? And that's the bit where some of my entrepreneur friends, or even like creative friends, I found got stuck, was like that deeper level where it feels like you're jumping off a cliff and you're gonna hit the ground, and then it's like, man, every time I've jumped off a cliff, I found that it's just like an endless journey of free fall. And I learned to like love the rush of the wind in my face. And sometimes, sure, I try to grab onto branches on the way down, but at the end of the day, I'm just chilling and I'm falling. And that journey is like the most beautiful thing in the world.
That the Yes Theory story, like we've both heard it, but I think anyone listening can pull a lot from it, especially the learning to trust yourself and your intuition. So if you're happy to, like, would you be able to explain that whole story?
The full story, yeah. So Yes, there was a YouTube channel I've followed for a couple of years, and they do all sorts of really cool content. Like, for example, you know, getting Ubers non-stop until they can convince an Uber driver to go skydiving with them. It's like a classic example. I really wanted to work with them. Early 2019, they put out a video saying, we're going to do some cool stuff this year. They had the video out for 24 hours. They said, if you feel like you can help us out, hit us up. So I called and emailed Thomas, and I was like, here's how I can help you out. And the crazy thing was he replied to the email. So I was like, this is so dope. And he was like, dude, can you send me a little bit more about what you've done and how you reckon you can help us? So I sent that. And I was like, you know, using software to track if he read it. Didn't read it. Followed up, read it, didn't reply. Followed up like 2 more times, didn't reply. I was like, oh my goodness. Like I just feel like I could help them out a lot, and it'd be also really cool to be around them because they've really impacted me in my life. Flash forward 6 months, September that year, I'm on the train back from Newcastle to Sydney. I see an Instagram story. They're like, yes, there is doing their first live event in LA. It's like 4 or 5 days from then. And I just had this really strong gut sense. Okay, I'm going to go to LA and work with Yes Theory.
Wow.
They need my help, and it'd just be great to work with them and hang out with them. So I got home and I checked my bank account. I still had my income limitations, and I spent about like $1,400 on a super last minute flight to LA. And this is before, like, bear in mind, this is before I've tried to work out how to get in touch with them.
Yeah.
So I buy the last minute flight, and then I just email Thomas again. Hey man, so yeah, this event, like, would be great to help. I've booked my flight, like I'm heading over to LA. I'll be there in 2 days. No reply. Follow up, no reply. Okay, one of my friends was the community manager. He knew Amar. Got him to text Amar. Nothing. Called DM on Instagram. Nothing. Nothing was working. And it was like 2 days before my flight, and I was just chilling outside my family's house, and I just still had this conviction. It's just gonna work. And I remember out of the blue, I got this strong gut sense to give a call to this guy called Tony. And Tony was a random guy that I'd met. We connected on Instagram a few months earlier when he was on a boat heading back from Morocco or doing some random traveling thing. I get that gut sense. I pull out my phone. I check my phone, and it's a text from Tony. Hey man, how are you? And I haven't heard from him in months. We only spoke once. No way. So give him a call. I'm like, yeah, dude, just about to fly over to LA. I'm like helping out Yes Theory. And he's like, dude, heaps of people try to help them out and pitch them stuff all the time. How'd you manage to get in touch with them? And I was like, dude, I haven't. And he's like, dude, I know their manager. I'll hook you up.
No.
Yeah.
Way.
So he introed me to Zach, who was their manager, Zach Conover, their manager at the time. Zach was like, can we have a call, like 10-minute call this time of day? And I was like, no, dude, like I'll be on the plane to LA then. So like got up really early, I think the morning of the flight, and then I just knew if I got him on the phone, like Thomas had said, like they'd had gaps in this kind of thing and they wanted to do events. And so I just pitched him, and he's like, all right, like text me when you land in LA and I'll like bring you over to the house and you can like work with the boys for a couple of days and help them out. And that's exactly what I did. Yeah,
that's wild.
It's like a really special experience helping them out and seeing the way they work as well. But for me, it was just the journey of, all right, I'm just going to go for it. I remember my friends thought I was crazy. They're like, why are you spending that? I'm like, no, this is like an investment.
I know that I need to do this. And it's so, when I think of like people trusting their intuition, like you pop to mind straight away, because that in so many ways seems so like illogical, seems so unrealistic. But for you, you knew that it was going to work out, and you knew that you were going to make it happen. It's
the same when I like rented a helicopter and brought my Uber driver on it with money I didn't have to like pitch a company for a deal. People are like, why the fuck do you do that? I was like, I was out surfing, like saw a helicopter fly by, and I was like, oh, this is a good idea. And so I just like emailed helicopter companies that night, and it was an investment, and it kind of paid off.
So you've obviously been through a lot of experiences where you've trusted your intuition and your gut, and it's paid off for you. So I guess going
also where it hasn't.
Definitely. So is anything tangible you've taken from those experiences now after having them?
Yeah, 2 things. One is just trusting the journey that following my gut takes me on, even when part of me is like, fuck, why did I end up here? Or it's not working out the way I thought it would. And then 2 is just like the journey of surrender. I was very much a guy that was, I'm going to make things happen and wake up at 5 a.m. and do all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, cool, that masculine energy is important. But on the other side, it's like, okay, how can I surrender, and how can I like let life kind of happen and flow? And you know, it's like Bruce Lee talks about with water. It's like, be like water, crash and flow, and have that power and intensity and like velocity and just oomph of a wave, but then also just the like soft, gentle ripples of it as well. And so being able to kind of have both of those like modes of being simultaneously, like that's been massive for me, and I love it. Yeah.
Was it hard, the surrendering? Because for so many people to surrender on a lot of dreams, desires, expectations, it's so hard to kind of take a step back and let life happen and release control.
Well, it wasn't that hard, but that's because I felt like I had no choice. And 2020 was the year, like with all the van stuff and the family stuff and the cancer stuff, that really opened me up to surrender. And I was like, okay, well, like, what choice do I have? Like, I can't just wake up at 5 a.m. and have enough cold showers and all these things are gonna go away. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I kind of just gotta let go a bit more in my life, and I started doing that, and things started opening up, and just like meet people at the right time, and things would flow. Oh, okay, it's probably something to this letting go thing. Oh,
So are you grateful for that really tough period in your life?
definitely. Yeah.
And what about the van, the pop-up? Are you grateful for that experience, or do you feel that you're still dealing with that and working through that?
I feel like it's been very humbling, definitely, and I've grown a lot through it. But yeah, it was difficult. Like I just had all these things that I'd been working on for so long, and I was working on like a documentary idea with Netflix about like domestic violence and van life and viewing the world as a friendly place. And I was doing a couple like really cool consulting deals, and a lot of my podcast stuff was like taking off again. And I was in this place where it's like for my like inner child and for like the teenager part of me, I was finally having everything I'd ever wanted, to the point where like financially things were taking off. Like physically, I was in the best shape of my life. Like everything was just happening. Like I had so many plans and I'd thought through so many contingencies. And the one thing I'd never thought through was like the cops, which are meant to be on my side, using me as a political tool and lying about me, and that making everything like fall apart. And man, it's just like really hard. Like I remember, because I was just chilling in Manly on my van, playing a bit of music, trying to make people smile. I'd heard about, I think, 2 suicides that morning, one friend that had lost a job, and 1 case of domestic violence. Wow. And I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of doing this for work. I'm doing some cool stuff. It's like a public pathway. Let me just go make some people smile. And like somebody thought my shirt said no worries, so no vaccines, when it actually said no worries, and they called the cops, and then it just blew up to the point where I met with the cops at midnight that night, and they said, look, you're probably not going to get fined, but we'll kind of just let you know tomorrow, ask you some more questions. Never got a call from them, and then suddenly I was on TV with the second most senior cop in all of New South Wales, just spending a full minute talking shit about me, saying I lied to the police, saying I hosted a pop-up party during lockdown, and then it's like cops are at my door, and I'm like, I'm not talking to you guys. Like I like openly spoke to you, and then you said I lied to you, you misconstrued stuff. Like fuck you. Like I'm getting legal advice before we talk more, and and then like yeah, then they sent detectives to my parents' house, and like that stuff was like, okay, like this sucks, and I just had to trust myself, and like I got a very quick crash course in PR when I had all these journalists messaging me. ABC had like a massive thumbnail, click here to see the moment, police bus pop-up party, and like the cops never even rocked up, and so it's just like a couple kids playing in bubbles, but the impact was like I got death threats, like people like I'm gonna kill you, like you need to be bombed, and then my van got stolen. Someone just came and picked it up on a tow truck. For the first couple of weeks after it happened, was so anxious walking around Manly that I thought I needed to like hire a private security guard. Jeez. So you take all that, and
all at once as well.
All at once.
Like
and
this is just like this isn't over. This is all at once.
And then like all the deals I've been working on, and like I started to get some clients, and like I built up a creative kind of marketing consulting business, instantly fall apart. And I went into debt, like about 15K of debt to like launch my business and pull together a lot of this stuff. Instantly falls apart. And, like, I get calls, hey, look, we know you didn't think you did anything wrong, and like we fully support you, but just with the way the press is, like we just can't work with you for the next long period of time. I was in like 7, 9, Daily Mail, Daily Telegraph, and so I lost it all. So suddenly I've got no income. Cops are at my door. Like I want a lawyer, I can't even afford a lawyer. I'm getting death threats, and like the cops didn't do anything about the death threats. The van being stolen, and it was just the hardest period of my life, because like for a month after, I thought it was fine, and I thought it didn't really impact me. But just to have like to be a guy that's so filled with love, and it's just like making people smile and bring so much joy. And then to just be attacked in that way and used like as a political tool, that's what I was in the end. I was like, this guy is the problem with Australia. It's just like not something that anybody can prepare you to go through. So then suddenly I've got this debt that's like I can't pay off, or the interest is increasing. The problem with Australia, my vans got stolen, and most people around me are just like you just got $1,000 fine, like just suck it up and move on. You just don't understand. Like I was at this inflection point in my life where I'd already like built up that momentum with my podcast 2020, and then been on the van journey and like the family stuff, and like I'd just been on this journey where already once I'd been like, okay, let's surrender, and then I'd come back, rebuilt myself. And I remember I was like having conversations with myself where I was like, okay, cool, like I'm on this trajectory now, the rest of my life, like it's not all going to be easy, but it's just going to be a different kind of journey for me. Like I'm out in the public eye more. Everything's just finally unfolding for me in the way I'd always envisaged. And that lasted for about 4 days. And then, yeah, like I'm still in the, like I worked out at the end of the day that experience probably gonna have ended up costing me between like 50 and 80K total. And I've only had the ability to earn an income with the visa situation since mid 2020. So it was only like I'd only had a year to kind of earn before then I had all this stuff. And yeah, like I had a month where I struggled to leave my apartment, even to buy groceries. I developed like the worst anxiety I've ever had in my life. And I'm this guy that's out there talking to people. Why do I have this anxiety? And like I turned to food to numb myself from the pain I felt deep inside, and the betrayal I felt. I gained about like 15 kilos in 3 months, and yeah, I just feel like it's one of those things where it's just so rough, because I won the court case on it, got the matter dismissed, so like I didn't have to pay $1,000 sick. So maybe that takes that from like 70 grand to 69 grand. Yeah. But like when I rocked up at court, the cop was like, "Oh, like how you been, mate? Like what do you do for work nowadays?" And I said to him, "Mate, I think it's actually really inappropriate and disrespectful you asked that question. The fact that you guys screwed me around and published like false stuff about me cost me my whole business, and now I'm working in a 9-to-5 job at the moment, as opposed to like really using my gifts to serve the world, like because of all the lies and the manipulation." I bumped into that cop on New Year's Eve. Wow. A week ago. I went to North Head to watch the fireworks, and on the way up, again, gut sense. Gut was like, "Hey, like we just need to revisit the pop-up party stuff for a bit tonight." Okay. And so I listened back to one of the old interviews I'd done on it, and I just fell through that journey, and just how hard it had been for me to build up my whole life, and then it gets taken away from me for no reason other than control. Yeah. Than that, and I went over to the cop and I said hi, and it's just like a really peaceful chat, and we're talking about the pop-up party stuff briefly, and he's like, "Oh yeah, man, like we didn't even really want to find you, like you're just like a political tool." Okay, like that kind of sucks, because it still impacts my day-to-day life a year and a half later, and my financial situation massively. But so I've kind of moved on from that. I'm like, okay, cool, like what's next for me? And we just got talking about surfing and life, and it was really cool for me to bring peace in that moment, because like peace and joy and truth is exactly what they didn't give me. And so to give it back to him in that way, where I was just like, we were just kind of like mates and was just having a chat, that was like really special for me to kind of close that chapter of my life.
It's the best response you can give.
Yeah, 100%.
And how did you go during the phase where you said you had the worst anxiety you've ever had? Were you seeking any help in that phase? What were you?
I saw a psychiatrist like once, and this was during the month where I was like, "Oh, like I'm all good," and he's like, "Dude, you're chilling, you're fine." And so I think it was just more slowly opening up to friends and family, and then like it just, yeah, because I just like gained 15 kilos. I was like, I often closed the blinds of my apartment that way no one would have to like see in, because I didn't want to be recognized by anyone. I often just like order. I found this pizza place on Uber Eats where their prices glitch, so I could order like 2 pizzas for like $10 plus delivery. So I just like do that every day, have that for like lunch and dinner. And some days I'd just go into Manly when I wanted to be social. Just buy heaps of junk food. I still had my van because this was just before it hadn't gotten stolen. And then I just like lie in the back of my van, like eat junk food and like cry for a couple hours.
Wow.
And just like watch Netflix.
And at what point were you encouraged to open up to friends and family?
Well, I think like they always knew something was up. But I didn't always feel ready to share. Because it's just like I had so many. I was like, okay, like 2021, I have all this stuff happening. If this happens, I'll do this. If this happens, I'll do this. And the one thing I'd never predicted was that like my country's police force would like lie about me and use me as a political tool, and that would cause this like house of cards to come crashing down. And so there was just so much pain there where like I had to have that couple months where eventually I felt comfortable opening. I was never suicidal, but I had moments where I was like, how's my life like ever going to get that good again?
Yeah.
Because it's not like I can just go back and do that stuff. I got to sort out my finances to the point where I'm back in the green again before I can even have another at bat.
Yeah, it's almost like, I think the fact that you got so much opportunity just that you worked for to snapped away like that, it's just, you could see the road ahead of just there is so much for me to do.
Working on this like documentary idea, the consulting, like, everything was taken off. And I think that what helped was eventually I was like, okay, well, I just need to get a part-time job to at least pay for some of my rent so my debt doesn't keep increasing. So I got a job basically as a cleaner in a sauna. And that got me out of the house. And then I started like exercising a little bit more. And then I was like, fuck, like I just need to sort out my finances because that's the big burden. And so I got a full-time job in the city, which didn't really align with me at like a deep spiritual soul level. But my gut told me like, dude, this is what you need to do. And part of me was like, what the fuck? Like, why would my gut tell me this? It's like, no, like I just need to sort out my finances for a bit. And that's still kind of where I'm at now and on that journey. And then that kind of like a month into the job, I was like, all right, I'm going to join the gym, go to the gym in my lunch breaks. And it was slow. It was probably mid last year. Like I reckon June, July last year when I finally started feeling like myself again. So it took a full year. And that was like the emotional journey. And then by October, November last year, I'd lost basically all the weight that I gained. And then now this year, like in the next couple months is when I feel the horizon for like getting my creativity back. The drive was a big part of that. And so things are like slow and unfolding, but it's been like I reckon when all's said and done, like it'll be about like a 2-year journey to like, to just, and I don't want to say get back to the moment I was before the pop-up party stuff because I've grown a lot.
You're far beyond that.
Far beyond that. I've really like humbled myself. I've learned a lot about even just some of the ideas I was working on then, how they can be better, and like how to, like we talk in jiu-jitsu about offensive and defensive frenzy, and like there's this bit around defensive frenzy where you can kind of start to clench up a bit and you forget to breathe, and it's like, okay, that's cool, but then we have this other concept around offensive frenzy and wanting to make the most of the positions you find your body in. And that was really helpful for me because I could see how it applied to my life, even during that time period when all the pop-up party stuff started happening. How I got into a bit of a offensive frenzy. What can I do? Can I do this? Can I do that? Whereas now I'd say I'm a lot more kind of grounded. So yeah, like it's been a journey. Like it's rough, but I feel like it's been a journey I've needed to go through. And it's kind of the same bit where it's like, am I still at peace with myself? Am I still comfortable with death? Like 100%. But also I kind of like, there's a lot more I want to give and share with the world. And so much of my story from from the pop-up party stuff, even before that, like the 6 months before that, when I was renting helicopters and doing stuff with Uber drivers and just meeting strangers on the street, and like all this hectic, like beautiful, magical stuff happened. Like I haven't even told the story of that. And so I feel like this year is also going to be a time for me to go back and be like, hey, like here's this photo of me doing this. And because a lot of people are like so curious about my journey. And so I want to start putting it out there more.
What like a lot of people go through times where they feel like they're out of control, and that's just how the world operates. I feel like sometimes we're put in situations where there is a lack of control, and you've been through that in like a really like strong, in a big impactful way. I think what direction would you give to anyone else? What path would you try and put people on if they go through a similar circumstance where they almost feel like they don't have both two hands on the steering wheel?
Yeah, well, the first thing is to look at how you're numbing yourself to the pain. First thing is to look at how you're numbing yourself to the pain you feel deep inside. Is it food? Is it porn? Is it alcohol? Is it casual sex? Is it drugs? Is it a job you don't feel fulfilled in? Is it money, online shopping, like whatever it may be? Because I feel like you've got to be aware of that to be able to go beneath the surface and truly heal. And that's the most important thing. And going slow, like not trying to do it all at once. For me, the thing that was most helpful was just being able to go outside and spend time in nature. And like once I lost an initial bit of weight, I felt comfortable again, like taking my shirt off at the beach and getting some vitamin D and going for a swim, and that kind of really catapulted things. And also to just surrender to the journey. Like you need both energies, and so there was a degree of surrendering to the journey, but then there was also the flip side of like picking myself up from rock bottom and I'm gonna go for a walk even though I don't feel like it. I'm gonna like eat healthy even though I don't feel like it. And so it was like holding the surrender and the let's make stuff happen. So yeah, well the like responsibility in at the same time.
Yeah, would you almost say it was taking control of the things that you could control? I feel like sometimes there's things that are out of our control that affect the things we can control. So it's almost like you were talking about your health. So your ability to go outside, what you put in your mouth, like what are you eating? All those types of things, stuff we can control.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not allowing your feelings to dictate your behaviors. Quite often, when you get in those ruts, feeling depressed will become normal, and you fall into the comfort eating, whatever it is, whatever someone's outlet is, the vice. So you feel sad, and that feels right to go and eat that food, but it's saying, hey, like I'm not going to let my feelings dictate my behaviors. I'm going to let my brain. It's almost like the knowledge.
I think like that saying I'm not going to let my feelings dictate my behaviors is complicated because you got to be careful. I would say more that I'm going to listen to my feelings, but then still be the one that's in charge at the end of the day.
Okay.
Because at times, like being in the I'm not going to let my feelings dictate my behaviors can create this internal war inside of me where I've got like my feelings and then what I should be doing. So it's more like really learning to love my feelings and like, hey, like sadness, like how are you today? Like and I feel like it's almost like I talk to him like he's a person, and it's just like, man, I'm like devastated. Like my whole life's fallen apart. And it's because I was like used as a scapegoat politically. Like, who would have thought? And it's just like, yeah, fair enough, man. And it's like, oh well, I feel like eating junk food. It's like, oh cool, man. Well, what if we like have a bit of ice cream, but like what if we also have like a healthy dinner first? And so really going on that journey where it's not immediately that intense masculine, like no, like fuck you, but really going slowly, because like it was a big journey for my emotions to go on as well and the different parts of me, and like making sure that I just really honored the validity of the day. Like sometimes in the last year I'll just randomly go for a walk and start crying. It's because parts of me are like remembering what I went through. And that's like so cool as well.
Definitely. It's super important to acknowledge it, and things like writing. I'm sure throughout that period you did a lot of writing.
Yeah, I did some journaling, mostly just like talking to myself out loud.
Self-reflection, like an audio journal, but to yourself.
Sometimes I do both, but often it's just like
Conversation.
I'll just sit down and I'll just like take a couple of breaths, maybe meditate for a couple of minutes, and then I'll just like see what I feel. A lot of sadness, a lot of like self-hatred, a lot of rage and anger. It's like, this government's supposed to like help me, not like betray me. And then just like going really slow, like parts of me, I really feel like it's only been the last few months where I feel like I've like really healed from the pop-up party thing. And now I'm still dealing with the logistics, but I'm like, okay, cool, like that was a fucked up situation. But also, how many like 24-year-olds get to experience like being slandered all over national news? Like it's a very unique experience.
It is, and like that's impressive that you're, and admirable to me at least, like that you're able to go through something like that so young with lack of experience and just be hit by that and now take that forward. I'm sure it's something you'll go through like your whole life. Like it's going to be
not like that.
Oh no, as in you'll feel the impact of what that did for you, whether that be positively or negative.
So humbling, and it's really taught me a lot about the difference between my internal and external worlds. Like in this full-time job, although it hasn't always been the best, I've been able to find peace internally, And so my life's been more peaceful than right after it happened, when I didn't have to work a full-time 9-to-5 really stressful job, but like my internal world was like just so sad. And so like it's really taught me that the most important thing in my life is the peace and like freedom I have within myself. And I feel like that's been, yes, I've done things in the external world, but the highlight of like my 8 years since leaving high school has been that internal journey. And the relationship I have with myself is the thing I'm most proud of in my entire life. And it's also what enables me to like love other people and support other people and be the human being I am in the world today.
Definitely. And I think I can see the growth through like your painful experiences. You said you love to be out in nature, and that reigns true because when we were on the drive in October, you could see how much you appreciated to just be out in nature. And I think a lot of people can go through experiences, not the exact same, but painful experiences like that, find good things through nature, through journaling, through friends, whatever it is. And once they start to feel better and healed, then they kind of forget about the power that exists within those avenues, whether it is nature or your friends. But for you, I don't think you forget that. I think when you're in nature, you just know the power of it. And
I felt that personally, because for me, it was my first time going that far in, and to see some of those environments and stuff, it was the first time. For you, it was the first time sort of like camping to that sort of degree and stuff like that, and that really helped me see what we were doing was because it was go. Like for most of what we did was go. And I definitely, like, you really helped me understand that the time that we're spending with friends and the connections we're making, yes, I'm aware of that, but we're going. And then also just the nature that we're in, like this environment is just like, it is like, the effort you take to go out there is like hours of driving.
It was so special, so beautiful seeing the scenery, and I really felt like the most connected to the land I ever had.
And I really feel like it was the back half of the trip when it was just us three that the love, the fruitfulness really started to come out.
And it was the slower pace. And part of me got like really upset with how fast the pace was that initial week, because I feel like there's so much more we could have done if we slowed down. But then having that opportunity at the end to slow down was really special.
It was for me, the pace and the agenda. Like I'm super proud of what we did, and I'm super keen to see the final product of the film. But being out there with an agenda, it really does pull away from just being able to exist in nature and just smile about what you have. And it creates a whole different dynamic, even within the group. I'm sure like you guys felt that the first 5 days, and then the back half of the trip, it was night and day.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was such a special
and
trip.
I wouldn't change what we did at the start. Like that is amazing. I feel like we did, to a degree, free flow and tried to be as like agendaless as we could with an agenda, if that makes sense. But yeah, that back half was where there was times where we were away from you. And what was cool was that we'd be away from you for like, maybe 24 hours or something. And then we'd come back to see you. And I'd be so excited, like we'd be talking about it on the ride back, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, like, dude, I wonder what Andrew's done. Like we're in Alice Springs,
dude,
we don't
like hectic experience. Alice Springs, I thought it was just this random town with like 5, hobos or something. I was like, what is it? But the experiences I got to have with First Nations elders, in particular, was like really.
Like I found myself so attached to what you were doing and the things you were doing. It would just be a 20, 30 minute like. I wonder what Andrew's doing. I wonder what he's learned. I'm so excited to know, and we try and predict. And then we'd come and see you, and it's like, it would just never be what I thought. And that was just, was beautiful.
It's a mix of like beautiful conversations with people, a deeper understanding of like First Nations, like Walkley and Anagu culture, and then also just learning some like J-tones and sick drifting. It was like
ripping up dirt.
It was like all the different flavors of life all brought into it.
It was cool.
Yeah, and there was like, we had some, like, we obviously had humorous sides, and then we had really deep sides to things. It was, I personally liked the fact that we had a lot of everything.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool to like travel with you guys again in some form.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that trip would be a lot of fun, whatever we did and wherever we went.
I couldn't, what's fucking awesome about that idea is that I couldn't even tell you what I think that would look like. And I love that. I love that I couldn't say what that looks like. It would just be, what I can guarantee is that I would just have the funnest time. And by fun, it's almost like I'd be a mix between soaking in experience and just having just like a solid laugh.
And I think that's the journey we're all on at the moment, like all three of us, around creating more time and like resources to be able to do things like
yes,
that.
creating opportunity.
That's really the focus, and it is cool, and there's a massive element of surrendering to that process and that timeline, because we don't know what that looks like, and we don't know how long it takes, and what it looks like when we eventually get there. But it's just trusting in it, and it's being like water. It's adjusting to whatever's thrown our way, but as long as you keep in the race, I think, and just keep showing up every day.
Yeah, it's commonly said on this podcast, but just knowing the why is like, when you have to make tough decisions, or when you're finding distrust in yourself, it's like, have something that helps you realize why you're doing these things. I think some people get to the point where it's hard to recognize why you're doing a specific thing. And if you don't have that, it's like, it's literally the core of everything.
Especially when it gets tough, because when it gets really, really, really difficult to get yourself out of bed, if you haven't got a strong enough why, then you're not going to get up and get going.
What was your why to come out of that rut you were in and to still be on that journey, I guess? What was the why? Like, once you got knocked down so far, why did you start to, do those things that were helping you get back?
Because I feel like it was like a second life. It's kind of like my first life had completed, and I'd done all these beautiful things. And I kind of had the mentality, like, my life's complete, my life's done, in a way where I've had all these beautiful and rich experiences. I've had all the different flavors. I've made money. I've met cool people. I've done beautiful things. I've fallen in love. I've gotten in shape. I've traveled. Like, I've followed the depths, and like really, really the depths of my heart and soul. And so it just got to this point where I was like, okay, you know what? Like, I'm probably, like, this thing's probably cost me $70K, so I'm that in the red, and I kind of got to, like, make a lot of that back before I even have another, like, entrepreneurial at bat or creative at bat. And then I just got to this point where I was like, okay, well, even if it takes me, like, 10 years, and I'm, like 32, 33, then everything else after that is just a bonus. Because I feel like I've kind of, like, yes and no, but I kind of have, like, done everything I've wanted to do in my life. And it's like, okay, sure, there's still more. Like, I'd love to have kids, raise a family, tell my story a bit more, do more fun stuff, like, serve and help people in the best way I can. Like yes, that energy, but also my life's just been so beautiful, and I have this big sense of completion around it. Contentment. And so my purpose was like I just felt like everything. It's like, no matter what happens from here for the rest of my life, everything from, we're talking early 2022 until whenever I die, is a bonus, and feels like a gift of, like, extra time. And I'm like, all right, sweet, like, let's see what I can do with this.
Just gives you such a sense of freedom, I can imagine. It's just like, again, your concept of surrender.
So much freedom. And sometimes parts of me, like, forget about that. Sometimes parts of me get trapped in, like, especially being in a 9-to-5 job, what other people want. And I'm like, no, like, I'd be cool if I died tomorrow. Like, sure, I want to, like, do some more stuff, but I'll be chilling.
It's the freedom and the gratitude, because for you, every day is a gift. But for someone that expects to live to 100, anything beneath that is like, well, what? Why didn't I live to 100?
And if
Are you kidding me?
To 100, it's like they've never lived a day. Every day that you've had, you've received a present. So that's just like,
I've had, like, so much depth of life in my life so far. And again, like, sometimes the part of me comes up that's trying to, like, maximize everything, and he's like, you haven't done enough, like, you're about to turn 25, and I'm like, dude, like, let's chill out. Dude, we're chilling.
Which is hard, being an ambitious younger male. It's hard.
Yeah, but I also just recognize the beauty of that part of me, because it's led me to do all these beautiful things as well. And so it's a dance now, where sometimes, like, he's leading, and then I'll be like, hey man, like, let's come over here, like, let's kind of, how about more joy? How about we do that? Do you reckon we can do that? Oh yeah, but I haven't built $100 million business yet. Do you even want to build one? Probably not. Cool, man. Like, how about we just go for a surf? Like, oh yeah, that'd be sick. And so it's that dance of building a relationship, and, like, the yin and the yang, like, both sides of the same coin, and bring both of those energies.
At what point do you think you realized your creative potential? And I'm sure that's something you'll continue on in your life, but at what point did you initialize it?
Yeah, like, when I was younger, I went to a Montessori school, so it was very creative. And growing up on a farm as well, played into it, because we'd have all the other kids over, and, like, we'd run through the sprinklers, and then Dad and Mum would be like, Andrew, how about you create, like, an obstacle course? And so I'd dig trenches and do all this different stuff, and I feel like that fueled it. The first time I remember really being super creative would have been, I reckon it would have been around when I was maybe 14, and I was given a school project where we had to create a food-related item to sell at like a stall at our school to raise money for some charity. We were given $20 to spend on inventory, and my group was like, all right, we're gonna do popcorn. It's like, all right, sweet. But how do you make the $20 go far? Well, you can't. You can only buy so much popcorn with $20. And I remember being like, nah, like this is cool. It's like a social impact project. We're helping out a charity. So I basically just tried to get sponsors. So I walked into Coles in Monavale and I was like, hey, I'm raising money for a local charity. I'm doing this project. Do you reckon you can like sponsor by giving us like $500?
Wait, so how old are you? 14?
Yeah, 13, 14.
Wow.
Yeah, I just walked in and asked to speak to the manager.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, but we'll give you $50. I was like, oh, okay.
Sweet.
So I did that, and then I called we did a raffle. So I emailed a bunch of local gyms and was like, can you give away like a 3-month membership? And then there was some connection to Foxtel, but they gave away stuff as well. And then I wanted
You're 14.
yeah, 13, 14. I wanted like an industrial popcorn warming machine. So then I emailed all these like popcorn machine rental companies. Found one that agreed to like let us have it for free, and then went and picked that up, and then we got like speakers, music. So we turned it into this like full massive thing, and made like I forget exactly how much money it was, but I think we like blew most of the other groups out of the water by like 5 to 10.
Clearly.
And we just had so much popcorn. We were like promoting it all around the school, and that was kind of when I was like, oh. There's just these like different doors that most people don't think to open, and I'm just gonna spend a lot of my time trying to work out what they are and how to open them. And from there, it was like okay, and I was still a teenager, and I was like, trying to work out how to make the girls I had a crush on also like me back, and then trying to work out how to get good marks and be popular. And there was that like teenager energy as well, but I was like okay, there's something here. And then finishing school and just doing different projects, I would always just be like, you know what? And I feel like my mind's really good at connecting dots in unique ways, in a way where the way I see all the way through to like going from that to like, okay, like it's a justifiable investment to spend $2,000 I don't have to rent a helicopter, and then in an Uber, let's pitch the Uber driver on joining me in the helicopter. That was always like when that happened, I was like, man, yesterday I had to get like 20 Ubers to get someone to go skydiving with them. I got one. I was 1 for 1, and it was the dude's birthday. Like, you know what I mean? Like I get the trophy.
Yeah, I love that.
But yeah, and then it's just like giving my creativity permission to blossom. I feel like space is one of the most important things in my life today. Space is in alone time. Space is in going slow. Space is in like my podcast, Hello Stranger, came from a month where I told myself I'm gonna seek boredom, minimize stimulus. Like I had like no spices on my food, no phone time at all, like no masturbating, it was just no watching TV or movies. Anything at all that gave me like any form of dopamine was like eliminated for a month, and that space created a fresh opportunity in my life for me to be like, what do I want to do? And then it just unfolded so quickly. So space has been really important in my creativity, and then exposure to new environments, like traveling around. The drive was really helpful for that. I also want to spend a bit of time in Bali this year. Van trip was awesome. And then yeah, like sometimes I'll just go for walks, and my mind will be like, oh, how about it's like how the whole helicopter idea came up. Like I was literally just surfing. It was like helicopters, and the thing is, most people would be like a part of them might be like, oh, like I wonder if I could like rent a helicopter like this. That could be cool. And then be like, nah, that's silly. But I just give myself permission to be creative and ideate without also needing to like validate at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, blank space, and then it's like, okay, well that's a bad idea, but this, and then but all the like judging and assessing of ideas only comes after I fully just give my mind permission to be like.
Do you think, I was going to say early on though, because creativity can be a hard thing to put a metric on, do you feel like early on in that popcorn student project, it helped you to see your creative potential when you saw that you blew the other groups like out of the water?
No, I don't think the other groups were even a concern. I was just like, oh my goodness. I've literally just like walked into Coles and they've given me a $50 gift card.
That's you not putting validation on creativity, because it's like, then if you were looking at the other groups, you'd be like, I need to be more creative than them so that I beat them. But for you, it wasn't about beating any of the other groups. It was just about letting your creativity run free.
Exactly. I don't think it's ever about competing or trying to be like a bigger man or a better person. It's just how can I be more of myself and express that in the world, in the world, And it's just a totally different paradigm to be in. Because I'm just chilling, you know.
Yeah.
Do you feel like sometimes you lose that?
Yeah, definitely. All the time. Yeah. Well, not all the time, but I think in the world we live in today with like instant gratification, it's like content, something I've always struggled with, where I start putting out content and then end up consuming it, and it fucks with my dopamine environment and needing to make money. It's like the job I'm in at the moment, like great people, but perhaps not the kind of best environment to support my creativity. And occasionally parts of me can be like, oh, like this is just what I need to do. And then I remember you asked me a solid question, which is like, oh, well, is this the best like path forward for you? Like, do you really know that? It's like, oh, okay. So definitely, like sometimes it goes away, but then I'll just like have a little moment. Well, a couple months ago, at an event, and then, oh, that guy sounds interesting, and then talk to somebody else, and I'm like, oh, I have this idea, and I just, before I know it, I'm like talking to everyone, and you know, and I'm like, oh, okay, and then pitching ideas, and so it just kind of like flows, and it's about creating a space in my life and like the right environment to just support that, because creativity is kind of like it's like a person that I'm in a relationship with, and I can't just expect to get heaps from them without also giving them as well. Yeah, it's like a very sacred relationship. Yeah.
Where do you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like with the opportunity stuff, I think that like, how do you feel other people can let their creativity flow? What would you tell someone to do if they feel like they're not being as creative as they can be?
Well, like do something really out there. And Tim Ferriss has a good prompt, which is if you're struggling to think of stuff that's out there, think what's the weirdest thing I could do right now. And for me, just doing random weird stuff, like if it's dressing up in an inflatable dinosaur costume, or like getting my massive speaker and going around and playing music, or
anal gazing.
I don't, is that the term? Perennial sunning?
It's not glazing.
Yeah.
Who says glazing?
Tanning naked. And what, like just these random out there things, like going on that trip, speaking to strangers, just doing more and more really unique stuff. That's been the fuel for my creativity. And then it's always like, okay, well, I'd say to people, if you're not like sure where to start, it's like, well, what are you curious about? What are you interested in? And then it's like, okay, well, go do that. Like I was talking with someone a few days ago, and she's like, oh, what do I do? And I was like, okay, well, like, what are you curious about? And then, like, how about you go to some meetup events on that? Or how about you, like, play around with this or try new things? And really don't be attached to metrics of it needs to look like this or it needs to lead somewhere.
I think that's a great
point. What if
point.
it can lead nowhere? And that's okay.
Taking the concept of value out of creativity.
Yeah. And also removing rigidity from your life and creating more space. Like I used to be one of those morning routine guys, you know what I mean? Like if I wasn't having a cold shower for 5 minutes, I was like a failure as a human being. And now I see people that are like, because cold immersion can be a useful tool, but some people, it's not a tool. It's actually like just something it's lost its power because they're just, it just consumes them, and it's using them as opposed to them using it. And I see people that are like, I missed a cold shower today. I'm like, dude, you just fucking hate yourself. Hey, like, maybe start with that before being addicted to cold immersion.
Yeah. Well, you're right.
Because dude, I was like, I used to like put my AirPods in, and then like I used to take conference calls from my like freezing cold swimming pool in the middle of winter, and that was my like. And if I wanted to get out, I was like, no, dude, you just need to like push hard. It's like, okay, yes, potentially some of that, but then my body was like struggling from all the cold immersion, and I would have like a teaspoon of cayenne pepper mixed in with water as like a shot before I hopped in the pool, because I heard it can amplify the effects. And so I was like fully down that rabbit hole. And now it's just like, man, some days like, yeah, like I like doing sauna and ice baths at my gym, but I'm not attached to that. So loosening the rigidity, loosening the grip on things. How can you hold on to things more lightly?
Yeah, well, sometimes with those types of things, it can be ego that drives it, and then it becomes like initially the desire to do those things was for healthy reasons, but now you don't actually do them for a healthy reason. It's like the last few days, I've been a little bit sick. Like I'd love to ice bath, but I'm like, I don't feel like it's probably going to be the best thing for me.
I find if I spend too long in that ice bath, too many days in a row, it puts a toll on my body and can make me more prone to getting sick.
Yeah.
And it's like each person has different things as long as you feel like you're in control of stuff.
And do you feel like you struggle with discipline at all with that approach? Because quite often not doing something, and there's definitely validity to what you said, and 110%. But I also think if you go too far the other way, then it can become you just don't have discipline and you can't get yourself to do.
Well, I think I've built a relationship with my parts and different like emotions enough to the point where they do support me and we're on the same team. And so it often doesn't, like, it's not really an issue because they're kind of like, let's eat healthy, we'll feel better, we'll have like more energy to go surfing tomorrow, for example. So it's not really an issue. I think that like some form of routine and structure is important for me because I went down the free flowing loop like way too far, and then someone said to me like, you're trying to avoid form so much in everything you do, and you're like really afraid of it, and that like trying to avoid form and have everything be unstructured, that in itself is a type of form. And I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah, I can't escape
and
it.
so now and he was like, yeah dude, like some structure can enhance flow, and I'm like,
For
okay.
sure.
So the most important things that I found over the years: consistent sleep schedule involving going to bed like early, like by like 10:30 latest. That matters heaps. Like morning sun exposure, getting outside, exercise, and like healthy food, and not going on my phone first thing in the morning. I also find that if I like constantly have the desire to go on my phone every time I'm in the bathroom, that's probably a sign that my like dopamine receptors are kind of like fucked. So that's been like a good metric for me. But most important thing I find in terms of like structure is circadian rhythm.
Yeah, my I don't think you've met our mate Pat, but he always reads whilst taking a dump. And I've been doing that recently, and I found it so nice. Yeah. So much nicer, because quite often the natural instinct is just, grab the phone. But it's like, why do I need the phone?
But like the phone often kills my creativity. Like I reckon I could be more creative if I consumed barely anything. And this was the tricky bit, because during that really slow period of my life, I really limited my information consumption. I even stopped watching the channels I loved like yesterday. Part of me thought I would miss them, but then I didn't. And I was like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah, there's a line where it's important to have inspiration from other creators and people that you draw motivation from, but then it can just become too much where it's I'm just consuming, I'm living my creative dreams through watching their stuff. And it's like, that's not what I want to be doing. I actually want to be doing the creating. So it's, for me, it's finding that like healthy dose, whether it's a teaspoon, tablespoon, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, nothing, whatever it is, to just give me enough to keep my mind creative and thinking of new ideas.
I think it was you who coined me, like who pointed me in this direction of like having like more than one, like say account. Like as in if you're someone who creates. Was that you who told me that? I think, so it's, it's saying like have one account where you actually intentionally follow people because you want to consume their content. And then the other account is like obviously for connection and using it as a tool. So it's like that's a tool. And then, so having one account that you use as like a business tool, and then the other account is something you actually consume intentfully. And you would want to see everything that the people you follow post. And it's like, that's where you receive the content, or that's where you consume the content, is in that realm. Yeah, definitely. Which is, like for me, I definitely haven't actually figured that out properly. I've got the two accounts, but I haven't even figured it out. And it's like, it's so easy. Like, why haven't I figured that out? It's just so...
Because it takes time.
Exactly. It's just
and
wild.
When you open Instagram to try and figure it out, then like, oh, this is a cool video. And then you're like, wait, what was I doing? Yeah. And the thing is, the algorithms are like deliberately designed to make you do that.
Of course. Yeah. Definitely.
How do you feel your relationship is with social media now?
I think it's complicated. I think that like sometimes when work can get really stressful in the environment I'm in, it's like, what can I use to help me like get through it? It's like sometimes like dopamine hits with social media, caffeine and sugar. But it's a lot better than it was a year ago. And I feel like now it does fuel me a lot more. And I do tend to catch myself a bit more being like, hey, like, why am I watching all these videos about like eating beef? Like, I already know I love like cats and beef.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to like, cool, like it's good for me. So yeah, and then I think there's still a bit to go. I think there's definitely going to be a time period soon when I'll probably like really restrict it. And what I really miss is Instagram used to have this app called Threads, where you couldn't see your feed, but you could just message people in a messaging tool.
Sick.
And a lot of my friends, like, they're just on Instagram and use it as a chatting tool. So that means it's kind of partially necessary for me to have for that purpose. So that's why I kind of end up on it. But yeah, I wish like.
Funny, because there was this app that there's this iPhone app that's really great. What's it called? ClearSpace. Heard of it?
Yeah, Byron told me about it.
Oh, yeah, I use a version like that, but it's like better than that.
Yeah.
I don't know why Byron uses that one.
What's it called?
It's 1 second or something like that.
Yeah.
It literally forces me to pause and take a breath before I use social
But
media.
the thing is with it, what I found was exactly that. It's like, I found doing that great. Like I didn't use it and I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
But then I'd be like, oh, but I want to check a message or message
Yes.
someone. It was like,
I'm not gonna wait.
now I need to, now I need it. So
And so
that'd
then,
be awesome.
and whenever that was the case, I'd just be like, okay, 10 seconds, put my phone down, and then click continue to app. And then it started to build the habit of, okay, well, I'm just going to continue to app whenever so it started to lose its utility.
yeah, but it would be cool to have that like separate.
But again, business-wise, not much incentive for them to do that, because then the people are going to consume less content.
Correct.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that's why they deleted it in the first place. But people are messaging their friends here. They're spending less time on their feed. They're spending less time looking at ads. Fuck, we need to delete that. That way we make more money.
Makes sense.
100%. Yeah, it really is, and it's understanding that they're not out to help you.
No.
Like spend less time on their apps.
Yeah.
They want you there more.
I think just having a relationship with it and understanding like it can be used for good. That's the tough thing about getting into these conversations, that it becomes a fuck social media. It's like social media has done so much for us. Like I use it all the time to connect with people, and like this wouldn't happen without social. Like it would be tougher for this to happen without social media. It's a big part of what this is. So it's almost like, again, comes back to your concept of having control over things. It's like understanding why you're on social media, what you're actually using it for, which is a constant battle. And it's like, if it's such a good thing, it's not going to come for free.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And understanding that, it's like, if we're going to use it for what it's worth and what it can do and its power, you need to understand that you're going to have to pay a price. And that price may be the control you have to build in yourself to be able to actually consume on these apps in the right way, intentionally.
It's understanding you have to take ownership.
Yeah.
Because the apps aren't going to take ownership and help you out. Your friends,
not expecting
your
that.
friends might, but that's only when you see them. You need to understand that you're always the one that has your phone on you. You have the access to do it whenever you want. So you need to take ownership of your life.
Grayscale also helps, like at the moment.
Yeah.
It's my phone. Like if I press it 3 times, it makes it gray.
Yeah, okay.
And that just like if I scroll through Instagram and it's gray, it's just
Helps with the dopamine.
it helps so much
Reducing.
with like look, this is my Instagram feed with like without that, and then it's just so
it's
simple.
colors,
it's
and then-
colorful, happy,
Look at that.
and now it's just
Oh,
black and
man.
white.
It's just
It's so different, yeah.
And it makes you want to spend instantly. It makes you want to just spend less time on it.
Literally, I find that can be really
And
helpful.
right there, it's like, oh, cool. Now I can just go to my messages and see, like, come onto this app to do what I intended to do, not just get caught in a scrolling loop. Yeah,
It's complicated. At one point, I
is.
turned my Instagram notifications off, I thought it would make me check the app less, but it actually made me check the app more because when I was messaging friends, I had to open the app to check if they'd replied or not.
You can turn. I know on my old phone I could do that. I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
just
Well,
have
you
it on
can
for
just leave.
messages.
Yeah. But then sometimes
You get stuck when you,
Yeah.
again, like, it's acknowledging that it's complicated and it's tough, because if something's, again, going to be so powerful, of course, it's not going to be easy to manage this, you know, and not expecting them to do it for you, to your point. I think all of us are like, you know, like, oh, they should do this, there should be less ads. It's like, what do they owe us?
Yeah, and don't wait, don't count on that.
no.
Maybe they'll do it one day, but don't wait for that.
Why?
Just start doing it now.
Why do they owe us anything?
It's a business. Like, they're trying to be profitable. At what point would they try and not suck you in?
Yeah.
Like, why? We always just assume that we're owed that. I don't know. Maybe it's different in other countries consuming content. But at least here, they all seem to be like that. It's like they're all evil. It's like, okay, well, that's in your control. Like, just don't let the evil in your life.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need Instagram. Yeah.
It's fascinating. So
It's difficult,
yeah, thinking forwards now, and again, creativity takes it wherever you go. But what do you sort of want? Do you have any curiosities at the moment? Any desires?
What's on the horizon for you?
it's on the horizon for me. Yeah, I feel like creating more space in my life, like at the big picture, that's what it means, and that means freeing up my time. That way, I'm no longer tied up most of the time during the day and in the week. That's going to be really important for me. And I feel like, yeah, sure, like, you know, sometimes I think more about, do I want to spend more time on the audio side of the podcast, and just come back to that and have some more conversations in a simple form. I also have a lot of doors opening in terms of really creative marketing opportunities with like companies similar to some of the consulting I was doing 2 years ago, but now I just have a lot of an even deeper understanding of it. So that's exciting. I think beneath all that, though, something my soul is really craving is adventure. And so I am starting to think about like, okay, what would it mean to spend some time in Bali this year or Thailand? I love Manly, but like I'd love to spend a couple months away. And again, we talk about creativity and how for me it often comes from new environments, new situations. My soul's kind of like, hey, how about we like go do this for a bit? And so if I look at this year, it's like, yeah, I need to find a way to like cover my living expenses. Yeah, I want to probably tell my story a bit more. Like that's the other thing that keeps coming up. It's like, all right, how about I just like post some of the like random photos of some of the really cool things I've done on Instagram? That way when people like I meet on the street or they like follow me, they're like, oh, it's not just random stuff.
You could send them the link to this pod as well.
Yes,
that's probably a really good idea.
Yeah,
it should be.
You should definitely. That should be number one.
Yeah, I should just like
that is number one.
Rename my Insta to like Andrew Tucci guest. Yeah. Just get a T-shirt that says I was on Tucci. Just wear it everywhere.
Oh, we've got one for you.
Actually. Yeah. So definitely putting myself out there more, telling my story. Like really looking at. There's a lot of different things I've done, and how do I want to take my life and my career, and kind of like what does it look like to package a lot of that stuff together.
Yeah. Okay.
But then traveling, like I really want to spend some time in Bali. Maybe I'm in a van again, but I do just feel like a bit of a calling to spend some time in Southeast Asia. So hopefully at least like 3 months this year I'll spend there.
Wow, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
that's amazing, and to think what those 3 months could do for you creatively.
Oh, amazing.
We spoke about some of this.
Yeah.
This like spending some time over there when we're in South Australia, and I just feel like it makes a lot of sense, and also something that I think is really interesting that I'm doing is I'm not putting too much pressure on myself to have it all figured out before I go on that trip. I'm really gonna let that trip also spark my creativity.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be at a certain point before you go.
Very good at alleviating stress from your life.
Yeah.
Where for a lot of people that would be a massive stressor in their life. Like, I need to figure all this out before I move. How am I going to make money? Where am I going to live? Blah 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 blah. But for you, that stress doesn't really exist.
Yeah. But I think I've just like been through so many big stressful things that a lot of the day-to-day stress can become laughable. But then also environment is important, because if I'm around people that are constantly stressed, it just wears off on me.
I also think you don't just shove it under the rug either and ignore it and build up stress. I feel like you're someone who has control over your stress more so than there's other people who don't feel the stress, but that's just because
they just shove it under.
I wouldn't say I have control over my stress. I'd say I have a relationship with the stress where we kind of like get on, and there's like an open communication pathway. Where sometimes like that stress will be like, hey dude, like you need to be more aware of this right now. I'm like, okay, cool. And if I'm not and I don't listen, then it builds.
It sounds like you constantly just clean the house. Like you take the rubbish out to the bin versus someone just sweeps it onto the couch.
We'll just talk about like life being a journey of cleaning your window and letting the light in. And like I feel similarly, an analogy I've had for years was around like life being a journey of getting to a blank canvas and painting. Getting to a blank canvas, it's like, what does it mean to build a relationship with the parts of me and like recognize who I am as a human being and feel free to do whatever I want and express like who I am at the deepest level possible, the depths of my heart and soul. And then like painting is like, well, what am I going to do with it? And what does expressing it look like? It's like they can both exist at the same time, but I have had gone through phases where post the pop-up party stuff for like a solid close to a year there. It was like, I just need to get to a blank canvas again, that way I can paint. And I'm not just talking about financially, I'm also talking about my internal world and all the pain there. But part of me was so nervous about like putting myself out there in the world again, because I'd just done something and
and the good guys.
The good guys had like fucked me over, and not taken any responsibility for that. And so it's like, okay, well, let me just get comfortable with what it means to like leave home again. And then it's like, okay, well, I've got a bit more of my canvas. I'm like, let me get comfortable with what it means to like do out there stuff again. Okay, let's like ride around Manly with my e-bike and put the speaker on the back, and even just like connecting with Finn. Finn's a good example of this. Finn and I were really close. Finn was really involved in a lot of the projects I was doing before that all happened. And then, like, after it all happened, we caught up for a few months, and then I just kind of like shut him off because part of me felt so much shame that I didn't even want him to see me like that.
Oh wow.
And there's like a couple I bumped into, a couple that I was surfing heaps with and hanging out with around that like 3 months. That was like a really creative build up period of my life. And again, I like cut them out as well because it was just a lot of shame, and then I bumped into them again. But it's only been this last kind of, like, I caught up with him maybe 6 months ago. It's only been this last period of time where I've actually felt comfortable enough and healed enough from that time period that I can then go back to some of the people that were in my life then and start to rebuild those connections. Yeah.
And it's beautiful that they're clearly genuine people because they stuck around.
Yeah.
And they're still there for that connection to be reestablished and grow deeper.
I remember, like, when I first caught up with Finn, one of my good mates, I was like, yeah, man, like, sorry for just kind of, you know, being on the radar for a bit. And he's like, dude, like, I've always believed in you. I just like figured you were just like working a shit job somewhere, like doing what you need to do until you come out the other side. I was like, yeah, like that's literally
what was happening.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, dude, like I just knew that's what you would do. Yeah.
That also speaks to you
like
as
really
well.
hit me deep. Yeah.
That's amazing. It speaks to you too, like your previous relationship before maybe you had some time away. Just the fact that you were open enough and he can read you like that because you were open enough to him. And like to have that connection still there. Like
you've cultivated a beautiful relationship that will withstand the trials of life.
Yeah,
literally.
That's amazing. Yeah. Is there anything that like you want to touch on?
That you don't think we talked about?
I think that it's like interesting. I think it's worth saying. Like it feels really special that my first kind of pod like back is with you guys, given the relationship we have.
Yeah.
Because I used to do podcasts like back in the peak of my creative and business period, probably one a month, one every 2 months. So it was like a regular thing. And then I haven't really spoken much like in this kind of public eye in a while. And so it feels like really special to get to kind of language some of the things I've been through and do it with you guys. And that's like,
thank you, man.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm honored, man. The fact that
definitely
you would share this space with us and be so open with us I'm super appreciative of it.
And like I've known some of these things like obviously from the drive, and we spent a lot of time together, and like, you know, there's long hours driving and having long basically podcast kind of like chats, you know what I mean, if you're going for 2 hours straight, and to hear you be able to articulate it so clearly, based off what you've experienced like on a podcast format, I'm proud of you, man. Like some of the stuff that you it's hard to talk about, you know what I mean? And for you to be able to actually come out and talk about it, it's great. And a lot of people need to hear it.
And it's because you've put the work in. You've taken the time to understand it, feel it, learn from it, and grow through it.
You've earned the ability to express it.
Yeah.
I think like something cool to touch on would be a poem that my dad was over from Canada, and it's the first time I've seen him in 4 years, and like the relationship I have with both my parents is probably one of the things I'm most proud of in my entire life. And I was talking with Dad about some of the challenges I've been through the last few years. And in my childhood home in Canada, we used to have this poem. It's called If by Rudyard Kipling. I'm butchering the name, but anyway. And I would read it as a kid, and it's about like being a man.
I know this.
Yeah. And I was like, man, like one day, I wonder like when I'll resonate with this. And it was like really important to me as a child. And I just remember looking up that poem and reading it with Dad and just talking about like the journey you've been on and how much I can resonate with that and what it means to be a man nowadays. So I think it'd be cool to kind of go through that. And so it says, if you can keep your head all about you, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming on you, that's what I went through. You can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, it's been the patient journey I've been on career-wise at the moment. Or being lied about, don't deal in lies. Or being hated, don't give way to hating. Yet don't look too good, no, talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, it's like the non-attachment bit. If you can think and not make thoughts your aim. If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impulses just the same. Again, it's like trusting where my gut leads me. It's like, well, maybe I need to go through the disaster stuff. It's not always going to lead to quote unquote success. If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. Like those two lines just hit so deep with what I've been through.
That's crazy how relevant that is in your life.
Oh, dude.
Wow. Like, and for that to be like one of the, assuming based on what you're saying, it's one of those things that you grew up with. Like, and for it to now
and like learning like what does it mean to embody this, because it's like, man, it's like, yeah, I was speaking so much truth and I was just like giving a lot of love to people and helping people, and to have that twisted into being a man that lies to the police and is a problem to the country. And so if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all in one turn of pitch and loss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve you long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. And that was like the energy of it being in the rut and being like, no, I'm gonna hold on, and like everything that happens after this is a bonus. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, again the way that I relate with everyone, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Wow. And it was really special to actually talk with Dad for the first time, and like, you know, seeing him in person in 4 years, and share with him about the journey I've been through and what it means to be like a man, and introduce myself to him in that light. And like that just poem really holds a special place in my heart, because I've been through having the truth in who I am, twisted, and I've been through, you know, it has somewhat felt like rebuilding with worn out tools, and just like really encouraging my heart and soul. It's like, hey man, like we can do this again, and let's live a little. Like that's been my journey, and I feel like this last month or two has been a sense of like closing off, and I've kind of consciously decided, man, I'm gonna stop introducing myself as the guy that was doing cool things and then got fucked over, and I was like, oh yeah, I was doing all this stuff, and then this happened, and so I'm just rebuilding. So now I'm gonna stop like bringing that up,
breathing without your loss. That's what
like
you mentioned.
I'm gonna start just being like, hey, here's what I'm doing now, and it's just a very different way of going about my life, and
That's
I feel
amazing.
like it's like very special to do the pod with you guys in this time frame, because it is like, it feels at the moment like I'm slowly closing one chapter of my life and starting the next one, and I have a sense of what it's going to look like and the flavor. But I'm just so excited.
I'm excited.
So happy I'm like around and kicking, and it's just been such a wild ride.
I can feel it in your energy, and like obviously talking about things. I feel like you definitely have the way you frame it, like it is like it's a past thing for you. Yeah, it does really feel like that. Yeah, it's amazing, man. That's cool.
It's beautiful. It's very exciting to see where this next chapter is going to lead you, and what you're going to produce and create, and just how you're going to live life. I think that's what I'm most excited for. And thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, man. The last thing we like to do, which you may know, is we ask you to give us a challenge of the week. So we want it to come from you, themed on obviously what we've talked about today, themed around you. It can be anything, but we just want it to come from you. So
what's the
anything?
We'll partake in this.
Do you do it?
We at the release date, so the release week of this pod. So it'll be released on a Friday, whenever that is, and then the week after that, until the next Friday, we'll partake in this challenge.
Okay. I think the challenge is gonna be, you both have to go out in public and individually hug 100 strangers in an hour. Yeah, that's the challenge. Yeah,
that's it.
That is so cool. Oh, there's so many. I love these. The challenges sometimes it's just like, because it's specific to the person we talk to, and I love that we get to take a bit of them out of the podcast. Like we get to go and actually act in a way in which they're living. It's selfishly, it's great for us. I love that challenge, man. It's so you. It's so you. It's so you.
They're all just numbers. Like none of those hugs mean anything.
Yeah, it's just
one, two.
It's just a challenge. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, if you do it too quickly, you have to restart.
You have to go back down to zero.
Yeah. It has to be like a minimum hug.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming on. It's been an honest, true pleasure, and an honor and a pleasure. My goodness, last week. But thank you, dude.
Man.
Yeah, I just really love you both a lot at a deep level, and it's been really special that we're in each other's lives.
Yeah, I love you too, man.
I back to that, man. I love you so much, man.